Good afternoon and Happy New Year to our CLA family members, clients, community partners, and friends. Welcome back to the 2022 live stream. We hope that your year is off to a safe and healthy start. Today, we're coming together to discuss the labor crisis that many employers are really dealing with as they start to plan their recovery through 2022 and get their businesses off to the right start this year. To help us understand the magnitude of the issue and what steps employers can take to safeguard their existing labor force and attract new talent is our CLA search advisor, John Fagan. Welcome, John.
Hey, Jen. So great to see you. It's been a couple of months. Thanks so much for having me.
It is so great to see you. So thanks so much for joining us. Before we get started, John, we're going to quickly review our housekeeping items. I'd like to urge you to subscribe to the CLA YouTube channel and hit that like button on the live stream so they're easy to find and you're notified of them in the future. In addition to our live streams, we have great specialized webinars scheduled in 2022. To stay up to date on these offerings, be sure to check out our events page on claconnect.com and subscribe to receive future invitations from us. You can also visit our events page to register and find other relevant events specific to yourself and your organizations. Finally, please continue to engage with your advisors here at CLA. We're always sharing articles and white papers, and we're looking forward to interacting with you as you plan your 2022 success when you use that Contact Us button on our webpage. So now that we have that all out of the way, let's just dive right into the conversation with John. John, one of the things that we've all been reading about and even talking about as we're coming into this session is the phenomenon called the Great Resignation. And I've even heard it called the Great Reshuffle, the Great Quit, the Turnover Tsunami, and all kinds of clever names. And even though people are calling it different things, it sure is real. So can you help me understand and our audience understand what is happening and where everyone's going?
Absolutely. I mean, it is the million-dollar question right now, industry-wide, and we're dealing with it on a day-to-day basis here at Talent Solutions. And I don't care what you call it, but it's real. You know, we're seeing it. We're seeing it in our own workplace. We're seeing it with our clients, and I think the phenomenon is still being explored and discovered, but really excited to be here, with you today to, help peel it back a little bit and kind of see what we're seeing with our clients and a lot of the organizations that we work with. Just this past Sunday night, 60 Minutes on CBS did a fantastic piece. Encourage you to check that out if you have time. But these people are going someplace, and we've captured a majority. I mean, I can't account for the 4.5 million that have recently given notice, but we're seeing it predominantly in a couple of big areas. We're seeing it in early retirement. You may be, 58 and a half, 62 and a half, 65, or you may be a couple years, younger than that. You have a comfortable nest egg and say, hey, you know what? I'm done. This pandemic, I've got the financial stability to mail it in and kind of sail off into an early retirement. That doesn't make up for that large percentage. We're also seeing it quite a bit with the gig economy. We're all very familiar with that. We have individuals and employees alike that are taking an opportunity to go into business on their own. They're kind of tired of punching that clock, if you will. We're going to discuss a lot about flexibility and the importance of flexibility in today's workforce in just a couple of minutes. But those that haven't been afforded that flexibility are looking at alternative options. And just to share an interesting stat, I definitely don't want to call it a fun stat, Jen, but 3% of people quit their jobs in November alone, and that's the latest data that we have right now. You annualize that, that's a 36% quit rate, right? It's an all-time survey high as we look at our data. The annual quit rate from December 2020 to November 21 was 32%. So some staggering and just some mind-blowing numbers.
It really is. I mean, and certainly as even a professional services firm, it's scary to wonder sort of where is the workforce going and, what can we do to support our clients and all these opportunities that are coming our way as we try to recover and respond to this kind of quit rate that we're seeing. So it's definitely a reality. that we're facing. And what I'm curious about, just from your perspective as search, what are you seeing in the market that employers are doing when they launch and kind of finance the search for new employees with all of this going on?
It's a great question. Everything's costing more money too, right? And I think, I'm no economist, but, you look at the financial strength of our economy and it's like, wow, the economy is doing well, but our jobs market and the labor shortage is in crisis mode. So a couple of things to share that we've seen consistently, across several different industry verticals. Here at CLA, we're very focused and specialized within industry. But one of the common denominators, we've seen a lot of our clients take money from maybe underutilized additional department budgets. I'll use an example here. Learning and development. Learning and development has been critical over the last 5 to 10 years. It's been a recruiting factor. It's been a driver. But a lot of that learning and development, Jen, as you know, we're big on learning and development here at CLA. A lot of that takes place in person, right? So a lot of companies have analyzed, where are we spending money that requires people to be in a hotel, be in an auditorium, a conference room together. And so we've seen a lot of our clients kind of dip into other funds like learning and development. In some areas, marketing. It's a little bit different. But the companies that are electing to do this are only putting a pause on those other programs, and they're reinvesting those funds into recruiting, human resources, wellness, and total rewards, benefits. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We've seen a lot of our clients cut back on travel, which I can't even tell you the last time I filled out an expense report, to be honest with you, because I'm not going anywhere. I used to, be jet setting all over the place. And I know we still have folks that are traveling, but I think travel has decreased for a lot of organizations. And then with smaller companies, no holiday party. There's $5,000 right there. Let's invest that into designing a more attractive sign-on bonus initiative or a referral bonus initiative. They're able to entice their current employees to increase their recruiting workforce, if you will. One of my big saying is recruiting is everyone's job, right? It's who you know. Can you refer people in? But if you're not incentivized to do it, people sometimes just forget that. So, with those sign-on bonuses and, incentivization for internal employees, we're seeing a lot of that. A lot of these organizations are using these borrowed funds to invest in technology. I mean, the connectivity, keeping us connected. I mean, I bet everyone remembers, whether it be March 11th or March 16th, the day it all shut down. Zoom and, Teams, we weren't utilizing those things as frequently as we were. And I always joke around with individuals, you found out really fast that you and I could talk all day long on Zoom, but the second we invited 3 friends, you only had 40 minutes, right? The additional, time to connect with additional folks cost more money. So a lot of those funds are going into the technology component, So, and then lastly, the total rewards and benefits. I spoke with a good friend and colleague this morning, kind of in preparation of this call, because he's the vice president of a very well-respected benefits brokerage firm here in the greater Boston market. And he shared with me that the biggest uptick that he has seen and his firm has seen, in employee benefits outside of your traditional medical, dental, 401k, the 2 biggest areas have been in wellness. 40 years ago, people wouldn't ask for help. They wouldn't admit that they were seeing a therapist. But now with the pandemic and with isolation, it's become so common that there aren't enough providers to assist these individuals. And then I kind of had an aha moment. He also shared with me that the biggest increase has been, and get this, surrounding student loan repayment. Okay. These offerings, you didn't even hear about them 10 years ago. So it's not tuition reimbursement, but student loan incentives. So companies, are really taking a look at this. And a lot of companies, from an HR perspective, are sitting down at an annual review or year-end review and doing a benchmark strategy, right? For example, somebody makes $100,000. they think they make $100,000. But a lot of these benefit brokerage firms are helping HR departments realize, sit down with your employees. Let them know what that family plan costs. Let them know what that 3% 401k match costs. You go from making 100,000 to making 125,000, and employees need to see that. So I would strongly encourage, having those types of conversations. It shows as an employer that you're valuing the work that they do in more than just their annual salary. And then just one last fascinating, statistic: college grads these days actually will prefer a student loan repayment plan over a 401k. And how they're looking at it is they're seeing the impact now versus the impact later. And I think that's just fascinating. So, Jen, I know what you do here at CLA, and I know you may have a totally different purview on that. Love to hear from you as to kind of what you're seeing in the field with your clients.
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple of thoughts just listening to you now. It's amazing, the investment in wellness, right, and mental health and all those things. You wonder if that might be the thing that triggers a slowdown in this, 36% annualized departure rate, right? Like, I think a lot of people, if they could be interviewed, would tell you, hey, we left our job because we had a moment in the pandemic where we sat down, we noticed we were working, we had the technology available to us, and we also we lost so many loved ones that we were really evaluating our quality of life and wanted to focus on our mental health, which is why we're leaving. So, that reinvestment that you're talking about to benefit the existing employees and to draw in a good workforce might actually have a long-term effect of making that job more satisfying. As it relates to what I do for a living, John, I think you answered or are answering a really good question that a lot of my clients and our clients are asking from, legislative and economic relief standpoint. It's like, finally, we're starting to see these employee retention credit funds coming in. And it's like, well, obviously the business is still viable. They survived, long enough to retain the employees to be eligible for the credit, but then they had to wait 6 months, 9 months, a year for those funds to come in. And this is a place where they can really invest those funds to get a stronger workforce in training, in technology, in the wellness and benefits of their existing employees, so that they can retain those folks. And then, of course, we see a lot of support for them to the extent that there's turnover. We're helping our business owner clients and organizations with the work opportunity tax credit, just to identify those employees who are being brought in who might be eligible to generate that federal income tax credit because they were unemployed, or they were receiving some support and benefits. And by reducing that federal income tax liability with this new labor, they're able to take those dollars that they otherwise would have paid in tax and put it to these programs that you're talking about. So it's a nice kind of holistic vision of how all of these factors, don't operate in a vacuum and can really play together to sort of reimagine and redesign this workforce. So Thanks for giving me a platform to talk about my favorite things too.
Absolutely. And when we met earlier, to just kind of, highlight that none of that works unless we're getting the people in the door, right?
Exactly. So let me ask you this, because this is something that we touch on too in my world, and that's relocation. Are you, now and pre-pandemic, how does relocation work when it comes to recruiting anymore? Is that as big of a factor as it used to be?
It's changed quite dramatically. In fact, pre-pandemic, relocation was oftentimes still off the table. Hiring managers and hiring companies said, go find me somebody in a 30-mile radius. And that was possible, right? It was the norm. And now more and more, as we talk about, our clients and hiring companies having to think outside the box and get creative. Now it's like, I don't care where they live. Just find me the candidate that is qualified for this job. We'll figure the rest out. And, we're seeing relocation packages, in our professional search team, upwards of $10,000 to $20,000. And, in executive search, I don't want to give a quote because some companies have have deeper wallets, if you will, but we're seeing, some significant relocation packages put together for the C-level executives that we're assisting our clients find. And, more companies see it as an opportunity, Jen, to cast a wider net too. There are some companies that are saying, I know I was always against it, but, as diversity, equity, and inclusion becomes such a monumental part of our fabric these days, let's look at a different part of the country. So it has definitely spiked. And, given that some of these companies are, resorting to a hybrid model or 100% remote model, there's the opportunity. We've seen a lot of our companies say, all right, the job's in Boston, the candidate we hired is in St. Louis. If they can come out for a Wednesday through Friday, 2 times a month, just to be with the team, have that interaction, we'll pay as if it was just a business trip. We'll pay room, flight, board, and meals. So we are seeing quite a bit of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it kind of lends itself to the next question that I was thinking about would be helpful for just to get your opinion as kind of a litmus test for our clients who are listening, who are business owners. And that's this topic of working from home, right? Like it's sort of our new normal. And it raises sensitivities both directions, I think, when we talk about it. So I'd love to hear from you, how are employers handling this whole work from home experience in addition to needing the technology, and what are some of the things that you and your team are finding to be really creative and cost effective for employers to really continue with that productive workforce that's also a trusted community for the employees?
The $1 billion question, right? So a majority of our clients, they've had no choice but to be flexible, right? We're living in a world where schools, childcare, other programs like sports and preschool and after school activities, they've been impacted and in some cases completely canceled for the very reason and topic that brings us here together today. There is a labor shortage. So companies that are not able to adjust and accommodate to these changes that their people need, those that can accommodate are retaining talent, right? They are seeing that if we can be flexible, if we can move away from, 5 years ago, you either worked 8:30 to 5:30 with a half-hour lunch, or you worked 9 to 6 with a half-hour lunch, right? It's okay, what does so-and-so need? Their life has changed. They are a single parent, or they are, everybody has their own situation. We've seen that the companies that have been able to be the most flexible have not only retained the talent, but it kind of goes along with that, loyalty component. Everybody wants to feel, part of the team. And those concessions don't cost there's no monetary value to that. Somebody might argue with me, well, the team works from this time to this time, and we'll talk about manufacturing, trucking, and logistics, and healthcare, and some other industries here in a minute. But in the organizations that are, sales, marketing, technology, what we're also seeing is you take away that 30 to 60 minute commute, and that could be in a major metropolitan area from a suburb to a city. That could be just the ride in, right? And then the ride home. If you take 2 hours out of that individual's day, they're putting that back into work. They're not starting work at 10 a.m. just because they don't have to have a commute. What we've seen, and I'm guilty of this, is I can knock off at 5:30, 6 o'clock, be present, be a father, be a husband, but knowing that I can get back to my home office, and put in a couple more hours, after everyone else in the household, calls it a night. I think a lot of people are doing that. I think that they feel the loyalty to their employer, that they've trusted them with that work from home environment. And it's been shown that productivity actually has skyrocketed. And, it's giving people that work-life balance. But there's also kind of a selfish thing to it as well. I think a lot of people like that, and they're afraid to get that memo that everybody return to the office. So I think some people are going a little bit above and beyond to show to their leadership that, hey, I used to work an 8-hour day in the office, but you let me work from home. I work a 10-hour day, and look at the results. So we're definitely seeing that quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like you teased this a little bit in your answer. Makes a lot of sense, first of all, that employees are showing some gratitude and loyalty using that commute time, maybe even splitting the difference. I'll give half of what I would have commuted to the employer, half of it to myself. We're starting to see people get healthier, do things outside, do things with their
Yeah.
families, but what about that question, that you raised with industries like manufacturing, hospitality, trucking, logistics, healthcare, where the professionals need to be on site? What are employers doing, for those employees and that talent to give a sense of equity, in those with those skill sets, and to both the business, but also to the employers and to the employees, I'm sorry, and their clients or customers.
Yeah, it's a great question, Jen, and a lot of organizations are still trying to figure out that balance. I spend a lot of my time. I oversee our professional search team within healthcare, and when I'm sitting down with a CFO or a CEO or a board, one of the biggest concerns is, well, yes, the accounting and finance, we have the technology set up. They could work from home 5 days a week, but how do you explain that to our clinical staff? How do you explain that to our physician assistants, our RNs, are the individuals that keep the cafeteria going for the doctors and for all of our clinical staff? And there has to be some sort of balance. And then, trucking and logistics, well, your holiday presents aren't going to, get to you via Amazon if somebody doesn't actually drive the vehicle with the package. So we're seeing that a lot in manufacturing, healthcare, trucking and logistics, and a couple of other areas, food hospitality. I mean, how many of us relied on curbside pickup or drive-through or delivery during this pandemic? There are some hardworking people that make that all possible, right? But what we have seen is we've seen organizations take a closer look at it, and they have developed certain programs that may allow, maybe they're increasing paid time off, or what was a regimented 2-shift or 3-shift manufacturing plant, maybe they're saying, hey, as long as everybody gets here and works the 8 hours, within reason, they can be flexible with, if their day was supposed to start at 7, now it starts at 9. We have seen organizations get creative, but we've also seen some really unique strategies, like work today, get paid tomorrow. The healthcare organizations are seeing a very difficult time, obviously, with COVID. A nurse or a practitioner gets sick, they have to isolate. Now, who's going to fill that void? Well, in previous worlds, somebody's not going to raise their hand and say, hey, I'll jump on that shift tomorrow, knowing that they're going to get paid for it in 2 weeks. Some organizations, even though it's creating a nightmare in payroll, they're creating this work today, get paid tomorrow. In fact, I think Wendy's started that campaign. They've been advertising that quite a bit, and that's taken off. So people are trying things. Some things are working, some things are not. But creativity tends to be, kind of the best case design for a lot of these organizations.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense, where at the top of this conversation, we started talking about ways that employers can identify resources to invest in their recruiting. It sounds like in these industries, those same resources can be used to pivot to maybe some of these new strategies. And that kind of leads me to my next question for you, which is, look, employers, our clients are really asking us, I know, just from talking to you, to work alongside them to solve some of these issues, not just talk about it, but let's solution around it, because we've got to get people in the door. So what are we at CLA doing to help employers as they navigate these times?
Absolutely. The number one thing we're doing, and I think we're all doing a great job, is we're listening first, right? We're taking the time to understand what our clients are faced with, because no one client is faced with they're not the same size, they're not the same industry. We're doing a great job offering up our expert advice, in so many different realms of what CLA offers. We do a lot of things. There's little we don't do, right? But I think the number one thing is we're taking a case by case approach with each client. And in my world, talent solutions here at CLA, I'll just kind of break it down into the four major, kind of quadrants that we support. Number one is search, and we have professional search teams and we have executive search teams. Our professional search teams help more on the back office core competencies, everything from staff accountants to, directors of finance, marketing managers, HR managers, project managers, all of the people that kind of keep the core engine running within an organization. And then we've got our executive search team. Both our executive search team is as advertised, C-level, executive search. We're not a staffing agency. There's a lot of, we get a lot of questions saying, oh, you have a staffing agency. We're not a staffing agency. We consult to our clients, and we do so on a retained basis because, as you know, we work with so many audit and attest clients that we have to adhere to independence. So we've been really, really busy because a lot of these clients are taking those monies and they're investing into whether it be a search function like what CLA Talent Solutions has to offer, or your contingency-based staffing agencies that you've had relationships with for many years. And the benefit of having that outsourced support, even though it's going to cost you more money, each organization right now has less and less people within the organization. So with less and less people, they have less and less time. We're now, the premium that we're, charged with is we can take a lot of that time off of their plate. We help with the sourcing, the screening, the scheduling. Our goal really is to bring 3 to 5 finalists to the client, right, on our search team. We also have our HERCO team, which stands for Human Resources Consulting Outsourcing. Equally as busy as myself and my team in search, we will either be the HR department for a lot of our smaller to medium-sized clients, or we offer a bunch of project-based work. And we've been busy keeping up with all of these policies, procedures, changes in compliance. So it's nice to have an expert that, an HR manager may know exactly what they're doing, but just to have that, that backup support saying, okay, this is what I'm seeing here. Okay, let's try this. So we've been very, very successful, and we've built some fantastic relationships along the way. And then the last component, which is relatively new as of last year to CLA Talent Solutions, is the work that we're doing in payroll. We have a team of designated payroll professionals that support ADP Run, very commonly used in smaller organizations, less 100 FTE. And then we've got a team that works on the iSolve platform, which has become increasingly more popular within not only a lot of clients, but just companies across the country. It's a fantastic platform. So we're helping in payroll. So we're really here to help them through. The only thing we don't do is we don't do benefits brokerage. If you remember one thing, we do everything but benefits, but we've got great relationships with benefit brokers.
Well, that is absolutely amazing, and I think it's really good for people to know. Look, there are teams that can come alongside you and support, answer those questions, even give you a feel for what is the appropriate compensation guideline, structure, where to find the talent as we're looking for it and as we have needs for it, and then how can we step in and make sure everything runs smoothly, especially when it comes to this, these ideas that you're sharing with us, like work today, pay tomorrow, right? Like, so those are some things that I love to hear that we do, and I think are not always commonly thought of, but can really help when you know that you have that relief available to you.
Absolutely. And you mentioned compensation. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention we've got part of our HERCO team. We've got a compensation team as well. And comp has been the number one kind of hot topic button. And we've got a great team with some great software that we can help analyze comp, because comp has forever changed, right? So thank you for reminding me of that.
Oh, sure. It's one more area where I think just with data, it helps us build that foundation to really pull the right people in and keep them, once we have them there. And that's really, I think the closing question I would ask as part of this, we talked about sort of historically what things looked like. Definitely what we need to do is we navigate the right now of it all. What the workforce looks like, what's happening with the labor shortage, how can we sort of, solve for that. But I think the last piece of this that's really interesting, especially and impactful and relevant, right now it's real planning time for everybody. It starts towards the end of the year and it starts getting solidified and wrapped up right around now. And I think it would be helpful with all of your frame of reference and data points to just ask the question. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but you do have a lot of information. What do you think, just based on everything that you've seen, that sort of the future of the workforce is going to look like for folks that they can keep in mind as they're having these planning conversations and budgeting process?
It's a great question. I'm glad you referenced the crystal ball because mine's been in the shop for the last 2 years. So I hope to get that thing back, right? But Jen, great question. I think there's going to be a ripple effect, right? I think we're already starting to see that. I've been asked, is this market ever going to level set? I was on a call earlier today and we were talking about compensation with a client and they're like, we are paying somebody that we would normally pay $75,000 a year, and that's been the kind of going rate for the last 5-10 years. We're paying them $120,000. It's like, what happens 5 years from now when that person, has now been the inflation is going to catch up to us, right? So I think in the future of work, we're going to have some big hurdles and some big obstacles when it comes to compensation. But I think, just what I've seen and what my team's seen is over the course of the last 2 years, there's been a power shift. For so many years, the employer had the upper hand, and now it's shifted quite substantially to where the employee has the upper hand, right? Because without the employee, the business doesn't operate. So I think that is something that is going to shift. In my almost 20 years of being in talent acquisition, I remember what interviewing was like, 15, 20 years ago. The candidate would show up, the employer would ask all the questions, and then their fate would be decided. Now it's equally as important for the employee to interview the employer. So we're seeing a lot of shifts in this, but I do believe that the flexibility and the technology are going to play probably the two biggest, probably the two biggest factors into what our future of work looks like. Technology will continue to improve as it always has. And I think with technology, flexibility will be granted and, even in office settings. So to be continued on that, Jen, but I think those are some of the things we're in tune and probably most likely to look into over the course of the next couple of years.
Well, and John, my hope with that too is that we have, I get there's a lot of shifting going on, a lot of departures, maybe in some cases permanent departures. But my hope based on all this that you're saying is, as employees can really interview the employer, that we'll start seeing eventually less turnover, really solid fits and a cohesive workforce where everybody's thriving because all the needs are met, and we're looking more at the whole person, the whole employee, and the whole life cycle, and hopefully we'll see that. But I guess the future, as while both of our crystal balls are in the shop, it looks like the future is always uncertain, but definitely that seems to be the case for now. I would imagine we're not through the worst of all of this yet, but hopefully with good tools in place and good strategies by our side, we can at least navigate it in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. And so many companies are all looking for the same people. So, some closing advice that I'll leave with our audience today is if they're, in that kind of hiring crisis, think outside the box, do something different, right? We go down into, Main Street USA and you see these huge signs and these air things, where everybody's hiring, right? And somebody's not going to bring in their application because they see a sign on your front yard saying that you're hiring. Separate yourself from the pack. Think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Think about wellness. Think about the things that your company can do, whether it costs a little bit of money, a lot of money, or no money. But really work with the people that are in the organization to talk about the great things. Lean on social media. These are things that do cost little to nothing. Because what we're seeing with our clients, there are 600 open senior accountant searches within a 30-mile radius of downtown Boston right now. So why is that candidate, candidate's not going to interview at 600 places. They're going to do their research. So make sure that you've buttoned up your benefits, and there's so much that you can do proactively to jump kind of the top echelon of that list.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, I think that is the perfect advice and kind of the perfect place to sort of wrap things up and just invite our audience to contact us if they want to reach out and get some guidance as far as how can we think outside the box, what can we do differently? And maybe that just starts with a call to the friends at CLA to see what we can do to help. But I have to tell you, this was such a great session and such a great way to start 2022. So thank you so much, John, for your time and all of your advice and insight. I think this is such a relevant issue and something that we're all facing right now. So hearing from you really, I think, puts a lot of people at ease and gives a good starting point for how do we unpack this and build it into our plan for 22. So want to thank you for joining us, and thank our audience and our programming team for the live stream and these other great learning sessions that we have. We're looking forward to having everybody back in a couple of weeks. And until then, have a great weekend and take care.
Thank you, Jen.